Greetings and salutations, loyal viewer, in this brand new year of 2022, where we're going to talk about very new topics like the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Again. Now look, I wasn't planning on making another Rittenhouse video. I was going to let that topic waste away as we move forward and onward with our new year and with our New Year's resolutions and whatnot that most of you have already broken. However, I was sent this video by Monolithic Ethos, who's a small YouTube channel who you guys should check out. He's a nice kid. He came out to meet me in Texas. It was very sweet. Well, I was like his hero. He was like, wow, I'm so proud to meet you, Sean. Thank you so much. He probably didn't say much of any of that. And this video was from a YouTube channel called Step Back, formerly known as Step Back History, and it's all about how Kyle Rittenhouse allegedly got away with murder. And again, I was going to leave this topic alone. I had moved on with my life. This was no longer going to be the Kyle Rittenhouse channel, sometimes featuring me. This was going to be a whole new AJW for a whole new generation of people in the year 2022. But when I say this video is the worst video ever made about Kyle Rittenhouse, that is only 52% hyperbolic, because this video is absolutely terrible. They basically make every ridiculous leap that I actually might think that Step Back over here is a performance artist who is making comedy meant to trick people like me. And if he did do that, if that's the purpose of this video, if it is this ridiculous for that purpose, then bravo, sir. I will give you a golf clap for your efforts. But that being said, this video comes off as genuine, a little bit too genuine for me to resist. So we're going to get into this video because the guy who made it looks like he lives in a virtual reality, or his brain has been hacked. Oh my god, I said virtual and hacked? Must be a virtual shield transition. Newly discovered security flaw puts everyone with an internet connection at risk. This vulnerability can allow hackers, spies, and criminals access to data on enterprise-level websites. And this is what is causing many security experts to ring the alarm and say everyone is at risk. However, your security and your privacy is in your own hands and always has been. This is why I use Virtual Shield as my own personal VPN in order to protect my own data. And it's not just hackers and criminals you're protected from. If you use Virtual Shield, it will protect you from your ISP, your mobile carrier, or whatever browsing company that you're using for your internet searches. And believe me, I know what a lot of you search on the internet, and you don't want that out there in the public. And Virtual Shield's no log policy will ensure that will never happen to you. Now this month you can get Virtual Shield for 50% off your lifetime subscription by just going to virtualshield.com/justice. I partnered with the company. It's a great deal for you. Go there, get all the perks, and enjoy it. virtualshield.com/justice. So the first thing that you'll notice about this video, if you actually click on it, if you actually watch it, is there is a content warning. Now this is not per se a trigger warning, but in reality it is a trigger warning. But if you look at the things that they're warning you about, it's racism, violence, murder, and theory. What kind of theory? Maybe film theory, maybe a game theory, we're not sure. But already, we're in an interesting start.
Now to our continuing coverage of the trial of a young man indicted for murder after opening fire at a BLM protest.
So I didn't do anything wrong. I defended myself.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
I know this, and I love you.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
So then we have a cold open with censored versions of Kyle Rittenhouse defending himself on video, which again, if you were to show this video uncensored, it would clearly clear Kyle Rittenhouse, but maybe this video is being showed in a censored manner to avoid the demonetization fairy, so let's not call anything nefarious. That might just be somebody having to deal with YouTube and our overlords daring to not demonetize us. Please let this video go through so we can all make some money right here on the internet.com. But then it cuts to Tristan, our main character for this episode of this video, and he's gonna load us up with some comedy and with some explanation of why he's covering the Kyle Rittenhouse case. It's not good, and I can't talk words.
Oh shit. That white supremacist just got away with murder, and like, everyone saw it happen. You know, Kelly, the story of how we got... Well, I guess I'll have to just make a video about it.
So if you don't know, Tristan, this man right here, owns a cat. And he just showed us a clip of the cat that he owns abandoning him because his video is so ridiculous, even an animal doesn't want to participate in it. Very sad. Everybody cry some tears for Tristan for being abandoned by his cat that is named after a woman.
Hey folks, it's Tristan here.
We also have pronouns. If you didn't know, Tristan is a he, him. I just want to take note of that so you guys can be respectful of Tristan's pronouns because it was really, really necessary for him to put his pronouns up on the screen for you guys so that you could know that you can refer to Tristan as a he, him, as I will be doing throughout the course of this video as to be respectful to Tristan's gender identity. Thank you, Tristan, for putting that up on screen. Again, this all goes to the parody element. And again, I could literally stop this video every split second. Every frame is a painting of cringe, but I'm gonna try to let the clips play so you can understand what's going on and why I'm even making this video even.
Last month, we saw something messed up. A white supremacist named Kyle Rittenhouse murdered 2 people.
So the first thing we have right here, the opening salvo from Tristan over at Step Back History, formerly known as Step Back. Yes, I got that backwards. He's actually known as Step Back right now, is that Kyle Rittenhouse is some white supremacist who got away with murder. Of course, there's no evidence at all whatsoever that Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist. Most of this so-called evidence all comes down to Kyle Rittenhouse hanging out with the Proud Boys and doing the okay sign in photos with the Proud Boys after the fact. Now, we found out later on that Kyle's original attorneys were basically trying to pimp him out to a bunch of different organizations in order to raise money. This is what is being alleged by Kyle. And Kyle, being a 17-year-old that's not very politically active, wasn't even aware of who the Proud Boys were. So even if the Proud Boys were a white supremacist group, which, by the way, they're not, this would not be evidence of Kyle being a white supremacist. This would be evidence of an attorney that does not know how to engage in the battle of public guilt versus innocence. We all knew that Kyle, based on the trial, would be found innocent because he's innocent, but this was just a terrible PR stunt and it went horribly wrong, and it allows bad people like Stepback, Tristan over here, he, him, to claim that he's a white supremacist. But let's go into a little bit further of the evidence that he is putting forward, because this is what really, really wanted me to make the video.
He openly fantasized about committing vigilante justice.
So Tristan right here says that Kyle Rittenhouse openly fantasized about wanting to commit vigilante violence at Black Lives Matter protests, and he puts up a bunch of Facebook posts with blurred out names, and you are led to believe, as members of the audience, that Kyle Rittenhouse posted these things on Facebook. Therefore, this should have been introduced into the trial, and if you missed the whole hearing about how this should have been introduced and the evil white racist judge saying it wouldn't be introduced, then that's just on you, because you don't know as much as Tristan, he, him, Step Back History, Step Back over here. But in reality, we've seen these before on this channel right here in my amazing videos. When we did a response to Thought Slime's horrible video on Kyle Rittenhouse, Thought showed these very same Facebook posts in his video to try to imply that there was some kind of guilt for Kyle Rittenhouse based on some weird Facebook page. And what this actually comes from is the Kenosha Guard Facebook page, because the Kenosha Guard put out an APB, I guess if you want to say an all points bulletin, for people to come out and defend Kenosha from Black Lives Matter riots, which of course were happening in response to the 100% justified shooting of Jacob Blake. Now, these posts, none of them come from Kyle Rittenhouse, despite what Stepback Tristan, he, him, just tried to pull on you right now.
The suit includes screenshots of comments on the Kenosha militia page like, "I fully plan to kill looters and rioters tonight," and "Now it's time to switch to real bullets," and "Use hollow points. They expand on contact." Another commenter on the page states,
and in fact, not only did Stepback just lie directly to your face, implying that any of this stuff came from Kyle, but there was already 2 different legal proceedings meant to determine whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse had any association with the Kenosha Guard. The first one was in fact the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, because during the course of the investigation into Kyle Rittenhouse, the police department actually downloaded all of the contents of Kyle's phone. This was meant to determine whether or not Kyle was a member of any right-wing militia or white supremacist or any type of organization, or if any of that led him to be called to Kenosha. Kyle's defense team submitted his phone. It was downloaded twice, not only by the prosecution, but by the defense, and it was determined beyond any shadow of a doubt that Kyle Rittenhouse had zero association with any of these type of groups, and specifically the Kenosha Guard. On top of that, there was actually a lawsuit filed against the Kenosha Guard by Anthony Huber's girlfriend related to them supposedly violating Anthony Huber's human rights by calling Kyle Rittenhouse to Kenosha with this Facebook post. This lawsuit was dismissed despite second thought speculation that they would determine a connection between the two.
Facebook claimed there was no direct links between his accounts and the Kenosha Guard page. However, common sense and likely further discovery counsels that Rittenhouse would not have known about or traveled to Kenosha but for the call to arms having been widely publicized, the lawsuit states.
Because they could not determine any connection at all whatsoever between the two. There was no evidence at all that Kyle Rittenhouse or his friend Dominic Black ever visited the Kenosha Guard Facebook page, let alone saw these posts, let alone wrote these posts, which are blacked out for a reason because they were written by other Facebook users. So Step Back right here is just straight up lying to your face. And I find it really funny that this is going to go into history as we're going on, because Step Back allegedly is a history YouTuber when this guy can't figure out stuff that happened last year and the year before that. I'm not going to trust you to tell me what happened 100 years ago if you can't look up basic facts that happened in a trial that all came out in the public in November of 2021.
He crossed state lines with an assault rifle and used it to end 2 lives in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He crossed state lines.
And no horrible video about Kyle Rittenhouse would be complete without the famous iconic line that literally launched a t-shirt on this channel: Kyle Rittenhouse crossed state lines. He crossed state lines. Kyle Rittenhouse was in one state. That would be Illinois, which is a different state from Wisconsin, which is where Kenosha was. And Kyle crossed the line from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin, in order to get into Wisconsin. Kyle didn't even live in Wisconsin. He lived in Illinois, which is not the same as the state of Wisconsin, and he had to cross the line in order to get there. He crossed state lines with an illegal, evil assault weapon. He forgot to say evil because the gun in fact is also evil, and Kyle crossed the lines with it, and he is guilty of felony. You know what? Forget felony. Capital crossing of state lines. Roll the compilation. You guys have been waiting for it.
Who crossed state lines. He drove from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now again, he drove from Illinois to Wisconsin. It's not like he was in his front yard. And he was approached by a group of individuals who posed an imminent threat to his life. He drove across state lines in a state that he doesn't even live in, and then he crossed state lines with it. He crossed state lines, meaning he traveled across state lines. He traveled there from out of state, who again traveled across state lines.
Across state lines.
Across state lines.
Now I need to make this 100% clear. I need to put this out there for everybody on the internet.com and everybody in the world who has some vague illusions of knowledge about the Kyle Rittenhouse case. The day after this shooting actually occurred, I recorded my video, and then I uploaded it and I published it the day after that. In that video, I was already making fun of people who were talking about Kyle Rittenhouse crossing state lines. And the reason I was making fun of people for that is because crossing state lines with a firearm is not illegal. You are allowed to do it. Now, there are certain firearms that may break the law, blah, 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 but we won't get into that right now. But in general, you are allowed to cross state lines with a firearm. Number 2, Kyle Rittenhouse did not cross state lines with the firearm. You know you're doing a really bad job when you're behind Anna Kasparian, who is that whole compilation that I just played for you, who actually ended up retracting her statements about Kyle Rittenhouse crossing state lines with the firearm, even though she said it incorrectly for well over a year, and then finally changed her tune, even though, again, it's not illegal anyway. So why the left keeps emphasizing this can only be down to stupidity. But the fact that Step Back, Tristan, he, him pronouns, if you guys were unsure about that, after all this time, is still opening a video with cross-state lines after lying to you directly about Facebook posts that were neither written nor even seen by Kyle Rittenhouse. It's just insane. It's everything I could have possibly imagined in a comedic ripoff of the left's videos about this, all in one, and we're only like 2 minutes into the video. It's gonna get much worse, trust me.
Right. I'm gonna have to make a bit of a tweak to my content in this video. You see, Bob here, say hi, Bob. Bob here has always been in the room while I shoot my videos. But after this decision, he's now got legal protection to shoot people saying stuff he doesn't like. So I'll need to be a bit more careful with how I word things. So today, let's talk about the factors which led to Kyle Rittenhouse getting away with unaliving 2 people.
So Tristan, step back, he, him pronouns if you guys are unsure, let me just clarify that for you guys out there, is now inventing a new character named Bob, who's meant to be your conservative militia type, and stating that this guy has the right to shoot people he disagrees with based on the precedent set in Kyle Rittenhouse's case. The precedent from a not guilty verdict in Wisconsin in a clear and obvious self-defense case that had nothing to do with people saying things Kyle politically disagreed with. It had everything to do with people like Joseph Rosenbaum charging Kyle Rittenhouse and reaching for his gun twice, a clear and obvious act of aggression, and other people knocking Kyle to the ground and trying to beat his head in with weapons, one of them pulling a gun on Kyle. Like, all that was actually related. But this guy thinks that Kyle being found not guilty on this is precedent, like legally binding precedent, which is just insanely wrong and ridiculous legally, that allows right-wing people to shoot left-wing people because, again, this guy is actually a parody of how dumb and ridiculous and insane the left wing has been about this case since the moment Kyle pulled the trigger on those people who, let me be clear once again, who attacked him unambiguously on video, undeniably. If you deny this, you're just wrong or lying or insane.
The story of Rittenhouse getting away with whoopsie-doodling 2 protesters began in 1676.
So far, the beginning of this video is basically what you would expect from a hysterical left-wing YouTuber related to the Kyle Rittenhouse case. They don't know anything about the facts, they allege things that have been clearly and obviously disproven by any objective standard as if they were fact, and they whine about how this is somehow allowing right-wing violence to become normalized, even though Kyle Rittenhouse was defending himself against left-wing violence that was in fact being normalized throughout that time. We were 4 months in to left-wing terror being normalized on a broad scale in this nation. One of these people attacked Kyle, which led to other people in this mob attacking Kyle, and he defending himself, and then all of a sudden the left wing got concerned about violence. But where this video goes from here is so unbelievable. It's so ridiculous because the next thing that people tend to do is talk about racism, even though Kyle defended himself against white people. He has nothing against black people. There's no evidence ever put forward ever that Kyle is racist at all. Is talk about slavery. No, I'm not kidding. This is within the same video.
Hear me out. Bayou, Virginia needed a source of unpaid work. So they'd find people who would work for free if someone paid their passage over. They even got some land after they paid off all their debts. This was a sweet deal for plantation owners, as many workers died before their contract ended. As survival rates increased, more indentured servants, as they called them, demanded land. There are 2 reforms I want to talk about. First, they began to rely less on these indentured servants and to rely more on I can't say slaves?
Look, I'm not kidding. He talks about slavery for 5 minutes right after his introduction because he's putting forward a racial caste system, which makes me think Tristan, he, him, actually believes that Kyle Rittenhouse shot black people, which again is just another level of leftist insanity put fully on display in this video, and I just can't really get into how slavery has nothing to do with Kyle Rittenhouse, how whatever happened in the 1600s in the Virginia colony has nothing to do with the Kyle Rittenhouse case from last year, but, you know, that's where he's going with this. Maybe in the next chapter of the video, we're gonna be able to find something that's related to whatever we're talking about.
Furthermore, a loophole in the constitutional amendment banning the no-no word, people could still hold someone in unfree labor if they were prisoners. So, they imprisoned black people at a drastic rate. They took their right to vote away if they infringed or were perceived to have infringed the law.
I do want to mention, by the way, that within the insanity of talking about slavery in connection to the Kyle Rittenhouse case, this guy puts forward that ridiculously insane conspiracy theory that the federal government post-Civil War didn't get rid of slavery. They actually legalized it with the 13th Amendment, which allows you to have forced labor in prison. So this guy is now putting forward an insane conspiracy theory, total misinformation, total ahistorical nonsense about the 13th Amendment, which was basically force upon the former Confederacy, that it was actually a plot by the Northerners in order to get the whites to be over the blacks. He also talks about how they have felony disenfranchisement laws, and even other history YouTubers who are on the left have pointed out that one state changed whether or not they had felony disenfranchisement laws post the Civil War. All the states that had it pretty much had it pre-Civil War. This was standard practice in the United States of America because having a broad franchise within the United States of America was not the norm at the founding of the Republic, and part of the qualifications were that you would be somebody with good character. So felony disenfranchisement actually dates back very early on in this nation and has nothing to do with slavery. It has nothing to do with the 13th Amendment. Tristan is just talking out of his you-know-where because he doesn't know what he's talking about. But let's move on to the next section because it's also ridiculous and we have to laugh at.
What does that have to do with this guy? The caste system needed enforcement. People who did that committed what they call vigilante justice. By vigilante justice, they mean terrorism. During the time of the S word, watchmen and bounty hunters hunted people trying to run away to freedom in Canada or the North.
The next section is related to white terrorism. Of course, we're just ginning up hysteria about how Kyle Rittenhouse was acting on behalf of white people in order to suppress black people. It is unsurprising in the way that it is presented by this guy because this is a very basic, low-skilled, low-thinking episode of Step Back's channel, which probably is what his channel normally and typically is. And in this video, he introduces a bunch of different cases that we've gone over on this channel in order to make the point that gun rights somehow don't apply to black people in this nation because, of course, this video is anti-gun. However, he's trying to present that through cherry picking, which is obviously flawed.
Today, the wildest double standard in American gun talk is the difference between how Americans talk about white gun owners
from my cold, dead hands
and black gun owners.
Philando Castile's girlfriend says he told the officer he had a licensed weapon and was reaching for his ID when he was shot and killed.
He shows the Philando Castile case, which was obviously a tragic case where the guy thought that Philando Castile was pulling out his gun when Philando appeared to be saying that he was not reaching for his gun. This isn't a gun rights case. This is a police wrongful death case, if you want to make that argument. Also, Philando was pulled over because his vehicle matched the vehicle and he matched the description of somebody who committed a robbery or a burglary or whatever. But that's a sad case. I understand that. And he juxtaposes that to George Zimmerman and then juxtaposes that to Marissa Alexander, who we've also covered on this channel. And he plays this news clip.
In 2012, Marissa Alexander was convicted of an assault charge from a 2010 incident in which she fired a warning shot with a reportedly licensed gun at her abusive husband.
Of somebody saying that Marissa Alexander just fired a warning shot and she didn't get to stand her ground even though she had a license for the gun, and compares that, I guess, to George Zimmerman, who's white, for the purposes of what we're talking about, even though he's Latino, to make the case that somehow stand your ground doesn't apply to black people because of racism. However, we've actually talked about Marissa Alexander before. And Marissa Alexander didn't just fire a warning shot. First of all, she never fired a warning shot. Not that warning shots are acceptable in the first place. She got into an argument with her husband. They might have technically been married, but they were separated, or her ex-husband. And during the course of the argument, according to her husband, he got physically abusive. And Marissa Alexander did not, in that moment, pull out her gun and try to defend herself. What she actually ended up doing, and the reason that she was found guilty, was going out to her car, leaving the scene, grabbing her gun, and then re-entering the scene to start a new confrontation and firing at her husband's head. The warning shot was about head level to him in the garage. That's why she was ultimately sentenced, but because a bunch of people whined and cried and called racism and said this was evil, she was actually released early, and people made it seem like she was a victim of the system, when in reality, she was 100% guilty of what she did. And by the way, he's framing this as this like big anti-gun situation and all that.
Is the role of the gun. The gun's been there from day one. It was there to suppress the unfree migrant workers. It was also there to make a continent of indigenous people empty for white settlers. The gun is power.
Marissa Alexander has actually become a stand your ground advocate, trying to make the law of stand your ground apply even more broadly than it did before to cover her instance. An instance which would allow people to re-enter confrontations with firearms and then start firing, even though the danger of the imminency would be gone. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's a bridge too far, but he cites her as an example because he thinks black woman, innocent victim, not a human, not somebody I should look into so I can understand their beliefs, because he is somebody who's actually a white supremacist and he only sees minorities as his pet project, as people to save. So yeah, if you're gonna make the case that guns and that's all bad and we should be anti-gun, Marissa Alexander is an absolutely terrible example of that, because she more closely did what Kyle Rittenhouse is to alleged to have done than Kyle Rittenhouse, who, by the way, again, had the gun on him when he was attacked, didn't go and grab it, and return to the attack for revenge. She crossed garage lines, by the way, in order to fire those shots.
Why do people get this way? Why is an act of violent terrorism at a Black Lives Matter BLM protest getting support from unexpected people?
So right now, at this point in the video, if this was performance art, then I must say A+, because it totally fooled me. This is one of the worst videos related to Kyle Rittenhouse I've ever seen in my life, in that it's just a joke. And again, if somebody was making fun of, if somebody was developing a straw man for a leftist who was anti-Kyle Rittenhouse, it wouldn't be believable if I told you all the things that this guy put in his video so far. And just to give you a quick rundown of that, we got the crossing state lines line, we got the Kyle's a white supremacist line, which again, based in non-reality. We have Facebook posts not written by Kyle, yet attributed to Kyle. And we have talk about slavery, white terrorism, and black people that are supposedly not allowed to defend themselves. So that is 6 insane points that should have nothing to do with this case. But the 7th point in this video, something that will really blow your mind and how ridiculous it is this guy starts bringing up Karl Marx in positive ways.
This is about where your average liberal analysis might stop. But, you know, I ain't no liberal. It explains why we defend the status quo in a sort of individualistic kind of way. But how about the why of said status quo in the first place? You will learn the what is racism, but often not the why is racism. To do that, we're going to need to look into our theory books. We're going to need this guy.
Now I know that you guys are shocked, stunned, and blown away by the revelation that Tristan, he, him of Step Back, the guy who has a cat that doesn't even like him, is not only somebody who thinks Kyle Rittenhouse's case has to do with slavery in Virginia in the year 1600 whatever, but he's also a communist. You're blown away by that. You're stunned by that. Everything about that has just shooken you to your core. You can't believe that this guy is also a Marxist. It's just unbelievable. It's stunning. It's like the most amazing revelation ever. And honestly, I'm not even going to go into this section. I'm done. I'm checking out. This video could be the greatest parody, I know I've said it a million times, in the history of Kyle Rittenhouse lefty response videos. But at this point, For my own sanity, I need to jump off this ship and just swim to shore. I'm done. You guys can check out the full video linked in the description if you want to go further. If you want to make yourself more insane, that's on you, but this is where I say goodbye. Now, you guys know the drill. If you like the video, you can show them by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on all my social medias. They'll be linked in the description, all cool like that. Support me via the support links, also in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Step Back, he, him, the guy who thinks Rittenhouse case is related to slavery. Till next time.